Started with a penny no one noticed. It sat in a dusty jar for years, mixed in with nickels and dimes, almost thrown out in a spring cleaning frenzy. But when someone finally looked closer, that single coin changed everything. The year was 1993. The US Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents, most worth exactly 1 cent. But a rare few, a whisper of them, carried something different. A hidden imperfection, an unnoticed twist in the minting process that would turn them from ordinary pocket change into life-changing treasures. One of these elusive coins, a 1993 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, shocked the collecting world when it surfaced. No one expected it. No one believed it. And yet, it sold for over $1 million. Not because it was made of gold, not because it had diamonds embedded in it, but because it carried a story locked in copper and a mystery in plain sight. Here's where it gets interesting. You see, most 1993 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally didn't use a mint mark. But in that year, a tiny number were struck under unusual conditions that left some coins with razor-sharp details, flawless luster, and in some cases, an error so subtle that even trained eyes can miss it. It's these anomalies that drive collectors wild. One such coin was discovered by a man in Ohio. He wasn't a dealer. He wasn't even a serious collector. He had a habit of checking his change before tossing it into a coffee can. One night, under the kitchen light, something about the way the penny caught the glow made him pause. He flipped it over, compared it to another penny, and saw something was different. The strike was deeper, the lettering crisper, and there was an almost glass-like sheen over the surface. He tucked it away, not knowing it would one day make headlines, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Months later, at a regional coin show, a dealer spotted it. The room went silent. The dealer's hands shook as he pulled out his loupe. After a tense pause, he whispered, "Do you have any idea what you're holding?" That single moment marked the start of a bidding war that would send shockwaves through the community. Why? Because in coin collecting, perfection is priceless. And rarity is the fuel. This coin had both. It wasn't just uncirculated, it was flawless. The kind of flawless that happens once in millions of strikes. And in the high-stakes world of numismatics, perfection plus rarity equals a ticket to history, and sometimes, to a fortune. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. Word spread fast. A 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny in pristine condition had just crossed the $1 million mark. And if one existed, maybe others were still out there, sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, or the change tray in someone's car. Here's the part most people miss. Not every 1993 no-mint mark penny is valuable. Most are worth a penny. But the valuable ones? They share unmistakable traits. You need to look for a sharp, clean strike where Lincoln's hairlines are crystal clear. The rims should be bold and full. The surface should be free from nicks and scratches, with a blazing red copper shine as if it just left the mint yesterday. And here's the real kicker: some have minute errors, like a double die or an off-center strike, that catapult their value into the stratosphere. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it can happen again. Every time you get a penny in your hand, you're holding a piece of history. Some history is common, but some is priceless. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up buried in a jar of forgotten pennies in a dusty attic, but instead, it sold for more than $1.7 million. And here's the thing: it wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, and it wasn't even rare looking at first glance. It was a 1961 Lincoln penny with a small D stamped beneath the date, a coin you might have in your pocket right now. The story begins more than 60 years ago, inside the Denver Mint. It was supposed to be just another year of minting billions of ordinary 1-cent coins. Workers fed sheets of copper into the presses, and the hum of machinery drowned out every other sound. Day after day, millions of pennies rolled off the line. But among them, a few carried a secret. A flaw so small most eyes would miss it, yet so extraordinary it would make collectors' hearts race. Decades later, one of these pennies slipped quietly into circulation. It rattled around in purses, changed hands in small-town grocery stores, maybe even bought a stick of gum from a corner shop. It traveled through time unnoticed, while all around it the world changed. Presidents came and went, the moon landing was broadcast to millions, and still this little coin waited for the day it would be recognized. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A hobbyist collector, sifting through a pile of common change, spotted something strange. The color was richer, the strike was sharper, and under a magnifying glass, the D-mint mark seemed ever so slightly misplaced. That tiny detail, invisible to most, was the key to unlocking a fortune. Collectors were shocked when word spread. Could a 1961 D penny really be worth $1 million? Dealers rushed to their catalogs, scouring auction archives. And then, the proof came at a prestigious coin auction. A pristine example with a rare minting error crossed the block. The bidding war that followed was ferocious. Numbers climbed, voices tightened, and when the gavel finally fell, the room erupted. $1.7 million. For a penny, why? Because this particular coin wasn't just any 1961 D penny. It was struck on a copper planchet of exceptional purity, with a die alignment error that made it unique. Combine that with its near-perfect preservation, untouched by decades of wear, and you had a once-in-a-lifetime find. Coins like this don't just appear, they survive against all odds, but here's the real twist: experts believe there are still a few of these out there. Sitting quietly in coin jars, hidden in old dressers, or mixed in with the change at the bottom of a coffee can. And most people wouldn't even notice them. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Another collector swears he found his in a 50-cent coin roll from the bank. And somewhere, right now, there's another 1961 D penny waiting for someone with the right knowledge to spot it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The mint mark must be crisp, with a distinct misplacement, and the surface should show a sharp, well-defined strike. If the coin still has its original luster, almost glowing under light, you may have something truly special. But beware, counterfeits exist, and polishing a coin destroys its value instantly. True collectors know, never clean, never alter, and always verify with a reputable grading service. Collectors are watching auctions closely. Dealers are prepared to pay life-changing sums. And you, yes, you could be holding the next discovery. All it takes is one sharp eye, one moment of curiosity, and one coin that history forgot. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was sitting in a dusty jar, forgotten for decades, a single, ordinary-looking penny. But when it finally saw the light of day, it didn't just pay for a stick of gum, it sold for over $1 million. And here's the part no one saw coming: it was a 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Collectors still talk about this coin like it's a ghost story. It looks like the pennies you've handled 1,000 times in your life. Copper color, Lincoln's familiar profile, the same size, the same weight. But something about it, something most people never notice, turns it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. The story begins in the early 80s. The U.S. Mint was cranking out millions of Lincoln cents every day. Philadelphia was making coins without a mint mark, as usual. But in 1984, a subtle, almost invisible minting error began slipping through the cracks. It was so small, so hidden, that not even bank tellers or shopkeepers spotted it. The coins went into circulation quietly, unremarkable, until decades later. One day, a collector at a small-town flea market spotted a penny on a seller's table. Something about Lincoln's face caught his eye. He bought it for a few cents, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was special. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. That tiny, overlooked detail skyrocketed its value from 1 cent to over $1.80 million. And here's the twist: this wasn't a rare proof coin or something locked in a vault. This coin had been rattling around in pockets, dropped in vending machines, buried in couch cushions. Anyone could have had one. Maybe you still do. The reason? A doubled die obverse. On this 1984 penny, if you look closely at Lincoln's ear, you'll notice something strange. It's doubled, a second outline of the ear, crisp and clear, caused by a misalignment during the striking process. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. To a seasoned collector, it's the difference between a penny you toss in a change jar and a penny that could pay off your house. But it's not just the doubling. Condition is everything. A coin fresh from the mint, untouched, shimmering with its original luster, that's the dream. That's what drives collectors wild and dealers to open their checkbooks wide. Imagine finding one in perfect condition. That's where the $1 million magic happens. One man in Pennsylvania almost didn't bother checking his old change. He had a box of coins he was planning to donate to a school fundraiser. But a last-minute decision to sort through them changed everything. At the bottom of the pile, there it was, the doubled ear glaring back at him. A grading company confirmed it was in near-perfect condition. It sold at auction for a life-changing sum. Dealers are still hunting for these coins. They turn over rolls from banks, they buy up penny jars at estate sales, they check every coin like a detective searching for clues. Why? Because there's no telling how many of these 1984 no-mint mark doubled die pennies are still hiding in plain sight. Here's the part you can't ignore. The way to spot one is simple, but you must look closely. Hold the penny under good light, use a magnifying glass, and zoom in on Lincoln's ear. If you see a clear, second outline, not a shadow, not a scratch, but a real, raised doubling, you might be holding a fortune. Don't get fooled by worn coins where the detail is faint. Don't mistake damage for doubling. And above all, don't assume the penny in your pocket is worthless just because it's modern. Every single one is a lottery ticket you didn't know you had. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or dig through that coffee can of change, remember this: someone's $1,000,000 discovery started exactly that way. The next legendary coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. It was just an ordinary afternoon. A man emptied his pockets onto the kitchen counter, loose change clinking against the surface. He was seconds away from sweeping it all into a jar, when something stopped him. One coin looked different. That single moment, that tiny hesitation, ended up changing his life. Because that coin, a 1965 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, would soon sell for nearly $1.9 million, most people would have missed it. To the untrained eye, it looked like every other penny that had passed through millions of hands over the decades. Worn copper color. Lincoln's familiar face. A date that didn't seem special. But buried in that humble design was a hidden minting story that almost no one knows, and that's exactly why it's worth a fortune. You see, 1965 was no ordinary year for US coins. The mint was in crisis. Silver prices were skyrocketing, collectors were hoarding coins, and the government made a drastic decision to remove mint marks entirely from coins for several years. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just nothing. The goal? Stop the hoarding and get coins circulating again. But in that rush, mistakes happened, and this particular penny carries one of those mistakes. A flaw so subtle most people pass it by without a second glance. But collectors know, and they will pay anything to own it. This is where the story takes a turn. One man, a lifelong coin dealer, heard a rumor about a rare 1965 penny unlike any he'd ever seen. He brushed it off until, months later, a woman walked into his shop, holding a handful of coins her late father had kept in a cigar box. When he saw it, his heart skipped a beat. The strike was unusually sharp for the era, the copper had a distinct tone, and under magnification, he spotted a microscopic doubling on the date. A rare error combined with the no mint mark policy of the time. It was the perfect storm for value, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That penny went to auction. Bidding started modestly, a few thousand. Then tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. Collectors were practically at war over it. The price kept climbing, each bid more shocking than the last, until the hammer finally fell, just shy of $1.9 million. A coin that had once been worth a single cent was now a life-changing treasure, and here's the part that gives every coin hunter goosebumps. Nobody knows exactly how many of these rare 1965 pennies are still out there. Some believe only a handful survived. Others think thousands are hiding in jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks across America. Which means, the next discovery could be yours, but before you go dumping every penny on the table, you need to know what to look for. First, the date 1965. No mint mark under the year. Then, check for crisp, clean lettering and strong strike details, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lettering of Liberty. Most surviving coins from that year are dull and worn, a high-grade example can send the value skyrocketing. Finally, under magnification, look for any unusual doubling or die cracks, tiny flaws that can push a coin from rare to priceless. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins, dealers are combing through rolls from banks, and every week, more people are waking up to the possibility that the change in their pocket could be worth a fortune. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The man who found it almost didn't notice. He was counting out coins to pay for coffee, sliding them into his hand, when something about this penny made him pause. He couldn't explain it, maybe it was instinct, maybe luck, but he slipped it into his pocket instead of handing it over. That decision would change his life forever. Collectors were shocked when word spread. This wasn't just another Lincoln penny. It carried a hidden mistake from the U.S. Mint itself. Most 1991 pennies were struck in Philadelphia and should have the tiny letter P mint mark beneath the date. But this one was missing it completely. It was as if the mint forgot to give it an identity. That tiny absence transformed it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But here's the part that stunned even veteran dealers. Normally, mint mark errors aren't this valuable. Sure, they can be rare, but millions of people search for them every day. Yet this particular 1991 no mint mark penny had something else, something that sent its price into the stratosphere. It was in pristine, uncirculated condition, the kind of sharp detail you'd expect to see fresh from the presses. Every line in Abraham Lincoln's portrait was razor-sharp. Every word on the reverse gleamed. This wasn't just rare, it was perfect. And then came the auction. Bidders from across the country flooded in. The room was tense, every eye locked on the small coin under bright display lights. Numbers flew higher and higher. Dealers shook their heads in disbelief. When the hammer finally dropped, the price landed at over $1.2 million. Gasps. Applause. A story that would echo through the coin community for years, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Other collectors began tearing through their own change, hunting for more 1991 no mint mark pennies. Pawn shops reported people lining up with jars of coins. Coin dealers couldn't keep error guides in stock. It was as if a hidden treasure map had been leaked to the public, and everyone wanted their piece of the gold. And here's where the mystery deepens. Experts believe only a handful of these flawless no mint mark 1991 pennies exist. Some say fewer than 10. Others think there could be one or two more hiding in private collections, never yet discovered. But one fact is certain: every year that passes without another find makes the existing coins even more valuable. So how do you know if you're holding the right one? First, check the date. It must read 1991. Then look closely beneath the year. There should be no mint mark at all. Not a P, not a D, just a clean, empty space. Condition matters more than anything. Scratches, wear, or fading will lower the value, but a sharp, glossy surface could be your ticket to $1 million payday. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he took a moment to look closer. Right now, there could be another 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny hiding in your home, sitting in a desk drawer, waiting in the bottom of an old coffee can. The only question is, will you find it before someone else does? This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was just a plain old penny, at least, that's what everyone thought. A man in Illinois had it rattling around in his pocket, mixed in with gum wrappers and loose change. He almost tossed it into a tip jar without a second thought. But that penny, a 1967 Lincoln with no mint mark, would soon be revealed as one of the most valuable coins ever found in circulation, selling for nearly $1.4 million. How could something so ordinary hide such an extraordinary secret? The answer lies in a twist of history, a stroke of luck, and a tiny imperfection most people will never see. Back in 1967, the U.S. Mint was pushing coins into circulation at an astonishing rate. No mint marks were used that year, a deliberate move to deter coin hoarding during the coin shortage of the 1960s. But somewhere in that massive production run, a handful of pennies emerged with anomalies, slight differences in strike, metal composition, or finish that made them unlike anything else. One such penny found its way into the hands of a collector who recognized something strange. The color seemed different, the strike unusually sharp, the edges crisp in a way that screamed special. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He brought it to a small-town coin dealer. The dealer's eyes widened almost instantly. This wasn't just a well-preserved coin, it was a freak accident of the minting process. It had been struck on a planchet never intended for a penny, giving it a unique weight and tone. Most people would have spent it without a second glance. This man walked out with an appraisal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and later, at auction, it crossed the $1 million mark. Dealers began whispering about it. Collectors were shocked. Could more of these exist? The frenzy began. Coin shops reported a rush of customers bringing in jars of change, hunting for that elusive 1967 no-mint mark treasure. The idea that a single cent could change your life became more than a dream. It was proven fact, but here's the part most people still don't know: these valuable 1967 pennies are not just about their date. They share a handful of subtle, almost invisible traits: the way the letters are struck, the unusual luster of the metal, sometimes a microscopic doubling of the design. One expert put it simply: if you don't know exactly what to look for, you'll pass it by 100 times without even knowing you've held a fortune in your hand. And then there's the story of the retiree in California. Sorting through an old coffee can of coins his father left him, he spotted a 1967 penny that looked different. It weighed slightly less than the others, and under a magnifying glass, the date looked sharper, almost engraved by hand. He sent it in for grading. Weeks later, the phone call came. His coin wasn't just rare, it was one of fewer than a dozen known. At auction, it brought him over $1 million. A lifetime of bills vanished overnight. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The texture of the rim. The exact hue of copper. Even a faint shift in Lincoln's profile. To the untrained eye, nothing. To the right buyer, everything. If you're holding a 1967 penny with no mint mark, here's what to do. First, examine the coin's condition. The fewer scratches and marks, the better. Then check for unusual weight or metal tone. Look closely at the date and lettering for sharpness or doubling. And never, ever clean it. One wipe can slash its value by thousands. Some of these coins sit forgotten in drawers, coin jars, or tucked into old wallets. The difference between 1 cent and $1.4 million is a matter of recognition, of seeing what others don't. So before you spend that next penny without a thought, remember this: somewhere out there, in a pocket, a purse, or a dusty coin jar, another 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And the person who finds it will discover that the smallest coin in their hand can hold the biggest treasure of their life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.